entire history is conveniently forgotten by Mr. Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson. Who was he, the General Secretary at that time? Who now comes, sir, conveniently forgetting the views expressed by his party at that time. Mind you, I'm not saying that the AFC did not collude with APNU in obstructing this project. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong at all, sir. I'm not suggesting that the AFC was not a co-conspirator and did not collude in frustrating and derailing this project. But in this instance, sir, in this instance, voted in favor of the project. It may be useful, sir, to check who was involved in the setting up of the registration of the local companies for the Amaila Falls project and who the company secretary was and so on and so forth, to get a better appreciation of what some of the vested interests were. That might be a relevant consideration in the matter, sir. It may be a relevant consideration to examine who was being paid to do the PR for Sithe Global. And all of those considerations, perhaps, I'm not saying they did or they didn't. It may perhaps be the case that all of those considerations may have influenced, may or may not have influenced the AFC position. But suffice it to say, and I would encourage the Guyanese public to go back into history and examine where the company was registered, who the company secretary was at the time, who was doing the PR for the company, and you might get a better understanding of the AFC support, but they're supported nevertheless. But Mr. Patterson comes now to the House, sir, and conveniently forgets all of that. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to leave the subject of Amaila quite as yet, though. My colleague, the distinguished Minister of Governance, has already cited, and many others have cited from the Norconsult report. In fact, I see another article here, maybe that I should quote. It has Mr. Ramjatan and what did somebody call him? The infamous Nimakaram. I see a photograph here of Mr. Honorable Member, Mr. Ramjatan, and the man now styled alternatively Nimakaram and rubber stamp, depending on which you prefer. An article headed, AFC support was lifeline for Amaila project, says Ramjatan. We did this because we felt we had to more or less give a lifeline to the Amaila project, because largely we are supporters of hydroelectricity in Guyana. Sir, like I said, I don't want to speculate on what considerations may have influenced their support at that time, but they supported it. They appear now conveniently to have forgotten that they supported it. But the records are there. The records are there. And it's all in the Hansard. I have the Hansard here. I'm not going to regale you. I have the Hansard here. I can read the speeches that were delivered, Mr. Speaker. I have the Hansards here. I have the relevant pages flagged, and if you insist, sir, I'm disinclined to read the relevant extracts on this occasion, sir, but if you insist, I'd be happy so to do. But I want, sir, also to spend a minute or two to explain what they did to Guyana. So, we just heard an article, the full page ad where Sithe Global withdrew from the project because they didn't get universal support in the Parliament of Guyana. The Guyanese people would understandably want to know, well, so who is Sithe Global? Mr. Speaker, Sithe Global is a subsidiary of, or was at the time a subsidiary, at the time I believe 80% owned subsidiary of the Blackstone Group. Mr. Speaker, the Blackstone Group is the world's largest alternative investment firm, the largest alternative investment firm in the world. The Blackstone Group, which incidentally is traded on the New York Stock Exchange today, well, in fact, I should say, at close of business yesterday, was managing total assets The Blackstone Group was managing yesterday, sir, at close of business yesterday, total assets of $975 billion US dollars. 970, that's the parent group. 975 billion US dollars. They owned 80% of Sithe Global, and Sithe Global was a company that had extensive experience in developing power projects around the world. I will cite, sir, just a few examples. They developed, sir, the Goreway Station in Brampton, Ontario, in Canada. That, sir, is an 875 megawatt project. 875 megawatt project in Canada. That project, incidentally, was successfully completed and in operation. They built, sir, the Bujugali hydroelectric project on the Nile River in Uganda, a 250 megawatt run-of-the-river project in Uganda. They built, sir, the Mariveles station on the Bataan Peninsula in the Philippines, a 600 megawatt project. They built, sir, the Dinganin station also on the Bataan Peninsula in the Philippines, a 1,336 megawatt project. We were building 156 megawatts at Amaila. 165. Sir, these people were building power plants all over the world. They've been doing this for years, all over the world. They had in-house expertise. They bought in expertise as needed. And I only cited a few, sir. They have a number of others. Their portfolio included a facility in New Mexico, facilities in Nevada, facilities in Pennsylvania, facilities around the world that Sithe Global had built around the world. These people knew what they were doing. They were part of a large, credible international investment group. But yet, sir, the APNU AFC, and I would welcome them indicating who their resident experts are or were at the time. Their in-house, I don't know if it was the honorable member, Mr. Patterson, they decided upon themselves, sir, that these people didn't know what they're doing, and they were going to block this project and obstruct this project. We, sir, this People's Progressive Party, when in government previously, long before oil, long before ExxonMobil, had succeeded in bringing to Guyana one of the largest investment firms in the world to invest in hydropower in Guyana. Mr. Speaker, I have two simple points to end my remarks on that particular matter. I still have a few other matters to address, but not too many. One, Amaila Falls did not happen as a direct consequence of actions taken by the APNU AFC in this house, notwithstanding the last-minute change of heart by the AFC. I'm saying definitively, sir, and I will repeat it for emphasis. Amaila Falls did not happen because of direct obstruction by the APNU AFC. And sir, my second point in that regard is that for Mr. Patterson to now come and try to rewrite history, try to as if none of this happened. This is in the parliamentary record. It's in the media. Sir, this is as if none of this happened. To come to say that APNU AFC played no role in this at all. Sir, I fear that I could not adequately describe what he would have committed in that regard without venturing into the realms of severely unparliamentary language. And it is not my inclination so to do today. Suffice it to say, sir, that once again, Mr. Patterson tried to hoodwink the people of Guyana. We all recall Mr. Patterson boldly saying to the people of Guyana, I wear no jewelry. And the next day, sir, the internet crashed. The next day, the internet crashed with photographs of Mr. Patterson wearing all sorts of bang bracelets. He was so bold. How can you, sir, how can you forget whether you wear jewelry or not? Which one of us, sir, can forget whether you wear jewelry or not? Mr. Patterson boldly said, I wear no, he's on camera saying it, I wear no jewelry. Sir, the next, within an hour, all you had to do was Google his name. And every photograph had all manner of adornments, all manner of metallic adornments on his wrists and the rest of his, whatever else, I don't know what other jewelry he wears. This is the same gentleman, sir. And I say this really to draw the following conclusion, and it is illustrative of all that we heard throughout the week. Sir, the APNU AFC is, I can't even call them a coalition any longer. They are a collective of convenience now. I think they've said the coalition has been disbanded, although I have my doubts about that. They are a collective, sir, devoid of any credibility. Devoid of any credibility. And that's the one thing that they have in common. So they have a couple others. Nothing that they have ever promised to the people of Guyana did they deliver. Nothing. And the people of Guyana will not be fooled over and over and over again. They came here and they say, we will do this, we will do that, we will do this. When we, now, if we were in government and if we had the oil money, you now have oil money. Sir, they received oil money. It will be recalled, sir, that they very notoriously received a signing bonus of $18 million US, and for months denied its existence. No less a person than the then finance minister said, we neither requested nor received a signing bonus. That's long before, so many years later, he would say he thought it was a gift. Sir, if they would do that with an $18 million signing bonus, one has to shudder to imagine. One has to shudder to imagine. One can only shudder when one considers and imagines what they would do with the oil revenues that we are and will be receiving in the future. But secondly, in addition to their lack of credibility, what we were treated to over the last 5 days was a display of their complete lack of competence and capability. This incoherence of their policy positions is not by accident. They are devoid of any competence or capability. Sir, I have said elsewhere that apparently the APNU AFC felt that government is unskilled labor. I have said elsewhere that they apparently felt that government is unskilled labor. that apparently you can cobble together a bunch of buffoons and brigands, put them in government, give them roles. I withdraw, sir. Apparently, you can put buffoon is not on parliamentary, but I won't use it. Apparently, sir, you can put together, you can bandy around. I mean, you know, the words are suitable, you know. Sir, you can put together a motley crew of people who have no relevant experience, no relevant expertise, no relevant track record, no relevant accomplishment or achievement, none whatsoever. No inclination to learn. In fact, instead are more akin to, I don't even want to insult the bulls, but you know, we speak of the bull in a china shop. Sir, apparently they felt that you could put together a motley crew, throw them in roles in government, and let them loose. And that is precisely what they did in 2015. Put together a bunch of misfits, completely incompetent and incapable of discharging their respective roles, charging around like bulls in china shops, breaking up institutional structures, harassing people, penalizing and persecuting those who didn't fit their mold, and in the process, wreaking havoc across the length and breadth of the country. Sir, it's not an accident that every single industry and every single structure in this country was destroyed in 5 years. As a matter of fact, sir, you have to wonder how they managed to unleash such a tornado of destruction in such a short space of time. They killed the sugar industry. They killed agriculture. They destroyed forestry. Sir, they claim to love, they spoke, somebody spoke, Ms. Walda Lawrence spoke loftily about bauxite production. But what bauxite production was, Mr. Speaker, they were actively complicit, if not the instigators, who chased out an international investor from the Berbice River, Rusal, thereby putting more than 1,000 persons out of work. Sir, you can't claim to love the bauxite workers and incite harassment of an investor who's employing 1,000 people. So they were charging around like bulls in a china shop, breaking up everything. And unlike the Honorable Minister Ben, none of them is a geologist licensed to carry a hammer. But they were walking around the country brandishing this mallet, brandishing hammers and mallets everywhere, breaking up everything. Sir, if you look at all of the institutional structures, everything. We moved from 2015, sir, there can be no doubt that 2015 to 2020 were the lost years. If you consider the trajectory that we were on, as a matter of fact, I will go further, because they were brandishing not only a hammer, but they were brandishing also a deadly scissors. The Nimakaram used to come here, the rubber stamp used to come here and brandish his fingers as a proverbial scissor, like a proverbial imitating metaphorically to symbolize the scissors. Cutting budgets everywhere. So in fact, it's not only 2015 to 2020, Guyana has been struggling from 2011 to 2020, almost 10 years. That's correct. Having tasted the power of a one-seat majority and having abused it in the manner that they did, sir, they went completely berserk, assumed office, and wrought havoc across Guyana. But I have news for them. Government is not unskilled labor. It's not unskilled labor. Sir, let me tell you, I'm under no illusion. If you ask me to go and build even a foul pen, you'd be asking the wrong man. I don't have the competence to build a foul pen. I don't know. I'm not a builder. I'm not a carpenter. But I know some good carpenters that I can go to if I need to build a foul pen and employ them. If you ask me, sir, to fix the pipes in your house, I would tell you, I appreciate your confidence in me, but I'm not a plumber. And I don't know how to fix pipe, but I know some good plumbers. And my colleague, the distinguished Attorney General, knows even more good plumbers than I do. He can refer you to some. Sir, if you tell me that the lights are flickering in the building, I will say to you, it might be low voltage, but I don't deal with electricity. I will get an electrician to come and fix the light. If you tell me your heart hurting you and you think you need a stent, I would say to you, again, I appreciate your confidence in me. I know you think that I'm a smart and capable person, but I don't know nothing about fixing heart, and I don't know nothing about putting stent in heart. I'm not a heart specialist, but I know a few good ones, very good ones. If you tell me you get a pain in your head, I will say to you, I'm not a neurosurgeon. I can't fix your brain. I can't go in and fix your head, but I know a few good neurosurgeons who could do that. Sir, we must know what our respective competence is. We must apply our respective competence as we best can. And where we need proper and sound advice, we must seek it and consider it carefully. I'm not necessarily saying always accept it, but be guided by it. Take it into serious consideration. What we were treated to, sir, is that not only from 2011 to 2015, and not only from 2015 to 2020, did APNU AFC believe that anybody could stand up and pronounce on anything, because all sorts of things they're pronouncing on. They're talking, I mean, to give you an example, I mean, if you were to take just the speeches of Honorable Member Jurita Finance, Honorable Member Valda Lawrence, and the Honorable Leader of the Opposition. I want to explain, I didn't give that explanation about plumber and so on just to make joke, just for purposes of jest. If you listen to them, sir, in one breath, they're talking about the size of the deficit. And they're talking about expansionary policy and impact on inflation. In the next breath, sir, they roll out a long list of policies that involve cutting taxes more and spending more, and in particular, spending more on government consumption. Mr. Norton read out his long list of 20 items. So none of them don't involve constraining spending, and none of them didn't involve income generation, revenue generation. Every single item involved surrendering more government revenue and spending more government finances. Every single proposal involved, put aside the fact that he didn't cost any of them, he didn't talk about what they would do to the deficit, he didn't talk about what they don't do to the debt. I don't know if he don't talk to Valda and what's your name, and Jurita, the honorable members. I don't know if he doesn't speak to the honorable members, Jurita Finance and Valda Lawrence. But he came with his long list of, they had just spoken loftily about the deficit and how big the deficit is and the impact on debt and the impact on inflation, loftily. And he comes, I don't want to get into who is an English doc and who is not in an English doc. I don't want to get into who is the English doc and who is not the English doc. Sir, So in one breath, as a matter of fact, in their own speeches, if you listen to the Honorable Member Jurita Finance, she has a number of proposals about spending more, a number of proposals about giving additional tax reliefs. And then she comes back and says, but she's concerned about the deficit and debt. The two don't go with each other. They don't go with each other. So even within their own thought processes, and this applies to everybody, I'm only going to focus on, like I said, a few people. A lot of them jumped up and, sir, with no even internal consistency in what they were saying. They talk about Dutch disease with no clear understanding of what Dutch disease even involves, much less how to counteract it and minimize its risks. None whatsoever. They speak of promoting agriculture, but then Mr. Ramjatan, who claims to come from a food-producing community, lambastes the support that we're providing to the agricultural sector. Lambasting sugar. Sorry, he rather astonishingly used the word. I made a comment about it on the sidelines of the parliament in the heckle. He spoke about right sizing, and he seems to think somehow that this puts some kind of veneer of decency on his proposal. Right sizing, like one of my colleagues said yesterday, basically means knocking off the people, putting them out of work and putting them on the breadline. And it reminded me, sir, of another word. It reminded me, sir, of a word from the Burnhamite era. Those are retrenchment. Because in that era, the late 90s, well, this in fact might have also been the era of President Hoyt, because it would be late 80s, the era of retrenchment. A nice word to dress up, a big word to fool people when in fact you're knocking them off, you're sending them home. You're putting them out of money. You're taking bread out of their children's mouth. Yes, a word like sagacity. They like big words to fool the people. They like to use big words to fool the people. And so, Mr. Speaker, that is what we were treated to for 5 days. Arguments that made no sense, internal inconsistency, pretending to be concerned about the deficit and debt, when in fact, all that you're proposing is additional spending and in fact, inefficient spending and further erosion of the tax base, posturing like you are concerned about Dutch disease, but still objecting to investments in infrastructure that are so critical to ensure the competitiveness of the non-oil economy. Actually, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Norton did say one thing that I can't resist highlighting. He was speaking about promoting the manufacturing sector, industrial and manufacturing sector. And his solution, this is where he came with the Puerto Rico example. Sir, Mr. Norton's proposal to promote manufacturing and industrial and manufacturing development in Guyana is apparently the Puerto Rico model. His targeted tax breaks, I think he called them, right? Was that what he called them? Something like that. Targeted tax breaks, industrial policies, stuck in the theories of the 1970s and 1980s, industrial policies aimed at promoting industrialization, tax breaks that are targeted, reduction of corporate tax rates for specific sectors. Sir, needless to say, everybody would like to pay less taxes. Nobody's in doubt about that. And every government would like to deliver to its population lower taxes. It would make us incredibly popular and make us immediately re-electable. We understand that everybody wants to pay less taxes, and as a government seeking re-election, we would like to win this popularity. But successive PPPC governments, not only this one, but successive PPPC People's Progressive Party civic governments, have refused to mortgage the future of the country at the altar of short-term expedience. We are not going to pursue short-term popularity by saying to people, we're going to reduce your tax rates to zero. Because we are a government for the long haul. We're a government for the long haul. And we want, and we know, and we value our credibility. And so we are frank with the people of Guyana. We say, look, you can't reduce the taxes to zero. The government needs to raise tax revenues. We're going to try over time to be able progressively to reduce the tax rate. But what was astonishing, sir, is how out of touch Mr. Norton was. Because he meandered all over this Puerto Rico model and industrial policy and this and that and the other. And then he ended by saying, we don't want to wait for low electricity rates, which may never materialize. Sir, if you speak to anybody in so he dismissed the electricity didn't feature in his whole discussion about promoting industrial and manufacturing activity in Guyana. Nowhere in that discussion featured the cost of electricity. Sir, now you imagine everybody who is in manufacturing is listening and watching. Everybody who is in manufacturing is listening and watching. How are they supposed to take this seriously? I mean, obviously, this thing about lower taxes will appeal to everybody, so they will like it. Anybody would like that. But if you are not prepared to acknowledge, how important electricity is to the cost of doing business for manufacturers, you are living in a parallel universe. You are living in La La Land. You are removed from reality. Well, I don't know if he has spent, I hear apparently he spends a lot of time in a place that is called Bam Bam Alley. I don't know if it is Bam Bam Alley, the fictional place that the Honorable Member, Mr. Dattadin, spoke of. But I don't know if in Bam Bam Alley, and I hasten to say to everybody else who visits Bam Bam Alley that I intend them no disrespect whatsoever. I commiserate with you for having to endure Mr. Norton on a regular basis. But sir, I don't know if in this fictional Bam Bam Alley, electricity cost is not a problem. But if you speak to anybody in manufacturing, if you speak to anybody engaged in industrial activity, if you speak to any household in Guyana, electricity is one of the biggest bugbears, one of the biggest irritants, one of the biggest costs that they have to bear. This People's Progressive Party government will fix that problem. And we're well on our way to that. And so, sir, I could go on. But I will conclude by saying that the nation spent the last 5 days listening to those of us on this side of the House articulate the policies of the People's Progressive Party civic government, and listening to the APNU AFC articulate what should have been their alternative. Instead, sir, they heard an incoherent, inconsistent, belligerent, for the greater part, belligerent, because many of them come here, they like to pretend to be decent. They like to pretend to be decent, and they are the most vulgar and belligerent. The Honorable Member Cathy Hughes comes up here and pretends to be the paragon of decency, and then proceeds to deliver targeted personal insults to people. And she thinks people are not watching her. She thinks people are not watching her, pretending to be this paragon of decency and, and conciliation and, inclusivity and willing to work with everybody. And in the same breath, sir, delivering nasty personal insults to people. And she thinks that anybody's affected by her. Sir, a minister who was so barefaced, sir, Sir, I didn't want to go here, but sir, I could cite here an article. Cathy Hughes doled out over $6 million from public purse to pay herself. Miss Prim and Proper, right? Doled out $6 million from the public purse to pay herself, her own company, signing the vouchers herself, signing the invoice herself, to pay herself, her own company, causing other government agencies to hire her company. Look at this here. The Department of the Energy, the Director of Energy, a public servant, being forced to confess, we did not do due diligence. Bino admits on Video Mega saga. We did not do due diligence on Video Mega saga, says Bino. Causing by virtue of her position other government agencies, not only her own, this was the Department of Energy, to hire her own company. And then come here, sir, and pretending to be the paragon of decency, and then want to turn around and insult other people. The likes of Cathy Hughes, of the Honorable Cathy Hughes, sir. The likes of the Honorable Cathy Hughes have absolutely no moral authority whatsoever, even to sit in this house. And it's not an isolated case, They talk about family and friends. Actually, you're right, it fits nicely. What were they saying? Family and friends and the favorites. How you rank this? Sir, this is not even family and friends. This is paying yourself.
Which law form got the
This is paying yourself, sir. They think they are judging us by their standards. They are judging us by their standards. Look, I could show you hundreds of examples. Look at this. Housing minister's husband has contract to build houses for her ministry. The housing minister's husband, sir. Sir, and come here, sir. I got this. I didn't intend it to. I didn't intend to go down this road, sir. Sir, I didn't intend to go down this road, because if I go down this is a road that I could spend the next 6 hours on. Would you like me to, sir? If I hear sufficient acclamation from my colleagues on this side of the house, I will go down that road. I will go down that road.
Let me take a back street.
All 6 hours of it. And so, Mr. Speaker, let me say this, sir. Over the people of Guyana have not forgotten. They haven't forgotten Cathy Hughes giving business to her own company and causing other government agencies to give business to her own company and having to make excuses to justice. They haven't forgotten. They haven't forgotten that. The people of Guyana haven't forgotten. The people of Guyana are not deceived. They're not deceived by, I don't want to get into who has what accent and so on. I pride myself on being relatively open-minded, on people should be free to speak however they wish. I speak how I want to speak, and I feel people should be free. If you want to mimic the British aristocracy, that's entirely your business. If you want to mimic the British aristocracy, that's entirely your business, sir. I don't belong to the British aristocracy. I'm only a half-educated Guyanese man from Georgetown, right? So I am not going to go down the road about who speaks how and so on. I believe people, I believe communication is about getting your message across, right? So if she feels she gets her message across, speaking however she does, I think one of my colleagues said that it resembles closely the accent of the British aristocracy, the King's English as it is now called. That's her choice. I'm not going to all of that. My point, you can speak however you wish, honorable member. As do I. But to come here and to pretend to pose as some kind of moral authority, when in fact you are the perpetrator of such vulgarity in public office, is nothing short of shameless. Nothing short of shameless. And they seem to believe that they have a monopoly on personal insults. They can insult everybody over here. They can insult everybody over here. But their skin very thick, thin, sir. Their skin very thin. They want pelt in salt. But they can't take back the truth. The truth hurts them. The truth hurts them. But sir, I didn't hear the kind of acclamation that I was expecting in relation to going down that road. So I will simply say this, that for 5 days, sir, the people of Guyana and the world at large were reminded of the true nature of the PPP and the true nature of APNU AFC. We ain't gonna come and tell you we got a big elaborate plan and a big strategy, and we're doing a couple survey, and we're trying to come up with an action plan and green paper and white paper. We speak to the people on a we don't send, if you can't come, we don't send no cardboard thing. We speak to the people every day. We listen to the people, sir. We have a fairly good sense of what the people's priorities are, and we will deliver on those priorities. Forget about all the fancy plan and policy and strategy and all of that. On the other hand, sir, sir, we're not shy of saying to the people of Guyana that we have to be careful as we navigate this period. You can't get carried away, you're an oil producer. All of them said, we now have money. We now have money, spend the money. That was their mantra. Spend the money. That was their mantra. Sir, this government will be frank with the Guyanese people. Just like a responsible family will spend some of what they're earning on their needs of today, but they will also be investing and saving in the things that matter for the future, and keep some, stash some away for a rainy day. Exactly like how a responsible family would manage their own budget, this People's Progressive Party civic government will manage the national budget. Sir, every day, there are Guyanese families in their homes making budgetary choices. Every day. You might be a carpenter. You might be a carpenter. You get a job, or your business is busy now, you get a couple of jobs, you make an extra small piece. A lot of people are experiencing that. Some of it you might consume, you might say, you know something, I always wanted to give my children something, buy something extra that they always wanted to consume. But some of it you'll say, you know what, I want to upgrade my house. I want to invest in my capital stock. I want to enhance the value of my property. So you'll say, you know what, we ain't gonna eat out all. We're gonna maybe buy a couple nice things to eat because I get an extra job, but I'm going to use the rest to paint up the house, to increase the value of my asset, to make it last longer. Or I'm going to put it down on a vehicle, maybe a truck or some equipment, so that I could move around my tools and my workmen, so that maybe I could set up a small contracting business. So there are families all over Guyana right now that are making those choices, striking the balance between consuming today and saving and investing for tomorrow. So they understand this. And they're not fooled by this thing to say, spend everything now, share out everything now. They understand. Managing the national budget is not that different from managing a household budget. So the people of Guyana were treated to a good display of what distinguishes the People's Progressive Party from APNU AFC. Capability and competence. You heard my colleagues, each one of them on this side of the house, articulate a clear vision inspired by our party manifesto and inspired by the presidential vision that guides all that we do. You heard a single coherent vision from us. You heard an articulation of that vision. You have seen the implementation of that vision. And in contrast, you got this motley crew. You got this motley crew, this medley of incoherent and inconsistent and oftentimes belligerent utterances. Our commitment, sir, to you, and through you, sir, to the people of Guyana, is that we will continue to manage the economy of Guyana to ensure that the things that people need fixed now, that those things are fixed. That's what Budget 2022 is all about. Fixing the community roads that are an irritant. Fixing the medical centers so that people can get good quality health care. Delivering remote medicine through telemedicine. Fixing the schools so that all school children have a place in school, primary and secondary. Providing tertiary education and technical and vocational education so that people can get the training that they need to participate in the oil and gas sector or in the construction sector. Investing in the public capital stock, the roads and bridges that are critical to generate long-term economic growth to our country. Roads, bridges, energy, importantly, the things that matter for the long-term future. Creating jobs. Sir, they talk about roads. Every road that we build creates dozens of jobs, whether it's in delivery of the materials, the workmen. Every house that we build under the housing program creates jobs for Guyanese people. And so that is our commitment. And I should have addressed another point, sir, with your permission. I was going to close. But permit me, sir, because it's a pressing issue. I should have spoken about inflation because it's a good example of how they misrepresented facts. Just like how they misrepresented Amaila, just like how they misrepresented the nutrition, just like how they misrepresented the economic statistics. Sir, look, the reality is that there has been some upward movement in prices, and we, as an honest and credible government, would be the first to say so. We have reported the inflation numbers. But you cannot come and discuss inflation without recognizing the global realities that are prevailing. And anybody who wants to be taken seriously has to take account of the fact that fuel prices have been increasing, fertilizer prices have been increasing, freight costs have been increasing. Those are realities. You can't come, no, sir, everybody in Guyana knows what's happening around the world. Everybody's online now. And so from the time you start to speak about it, of course, inflation is a concern, and we continue to make the several interventions that we've been making. You know, had we not removed excise taxes from fuel, fuel prices would have been 3 times what they are today. We took off fuel taxes to make sure that the Guyanese people don't have to bear the brunt of that increase. That has removed a burden of more than $17 billion on the Guyanese consuming public. Now, fuel prices still remain elevated. And we recognize this, and that's why we've committed to keeping the fuel taxes off. The reality, too, is that in an economy like ours that is growing so rapidly, in addition to imported pressures, you have an expansion in domestic demand. That's the reality. You have more people working. You have more people earning incomes. Therefore, you have more people going to the market and buying the same goods and services. That's the reality. You have international companies that are buying goods and services as well. So the reality is that in a rapidly growing economy such as Guyana, some amount of price pressure will unavoidably arise. We have, as a responsible government, first of all, you have to analyze this issue properly, as we have done. You have to be frank with people. You have to adopt policies that can seek to address, as far as you possibly can, things like supply-side constraints. So, for example, that's why we're investing heavily in agriculture, to ramp up domestic food production. It's not an accident that we've been providing the fertilizer support to the farmers. It's not by accident that we're distributing breeding and planting material to the farmers, because we want to ramp up food production. The reality is that high food prices, in fact, also present an opportunity for producers and farmers. And Minister Ben made this point very eloquently, that you actually, our agriculture sector actually has an opportunity now to ramp up production, and an opportunity that should be seized. But here again, this was yet another issue where they came, the members on that side of the House came purely for the purposes of political posturing and grandstanding, wanting to pretend that these global realities don't exist, wanting to pretend. One of them said, well, what does domestically, how does Bora, I think he said Bora and Okro. What does global inflation have to do with Bora and Okro or Bora and something? Bora and Karaila or something. Bora and cabbage. Sir, any farmer who uses fuel, any farmer who uses fertilizer, any farmer who uses transportation, which is fuel driven, how are you fertilizing the field? How are you getting your tractor, your truck, or your canter to the back dam? When you cut your Karaila or your Bora or your cabbage, how are you getting it out of the back dam to the market? You don't got to pay a truck or a canter? But apparently, sir, they're so removed from reality. They're so removed from practical. You know, they have these textbook notions. You know, it's textbook notions. Bora is grown locally. Bora ain't got nothing to do with global inflation. Right? They're so out of touch with reality and out of touch with the way things work. You know, you want to know where these people have been living all their lives. Like they're so removed from the real world. So removed from the real world. And the people of Guyana know better. The farmers are watching. And the farmers say, what do these people understand? We got to buy fertilizer, we got to buy fuel. That's the reality. And so let me say very clearly that we recognize the importance of containing price increases. That is why, in fact, you know, you may ask, why we ain't giving 100% salary increase? You know what would happen if we give 100% salary increase? You jump up and say, give 50% salary increase. You know what would happen? If you give 50% salary increase, the salary after the 50% will be worth less than what it was before because of what would happen with inflation. That's the reality. That is the reality. And so a responsible government has to approach these matters carefully and responsibly. So it's easy to jump up and say double salaries, that will solve inflation. Double cash grant, that will solve inflation. So anybody with a modicum of common sense. And I have great faith in the Guyanese people. They have more than a modicum of common sense, knows the absurdity of what our colleagues on that side of the House are presenting. And so, Mr. Speaker, if I can return now to my conclusion, as I was saying, we were treated, we were regaled, the world was regaled. We were regaled for 5 days, sir. We were regaled for 5 days, sir, with a display. We had put on full display. We endured. We endured, sir, the nation and the world endured for 5 days. A display, on the one hand, a display by the APNU AFC of their abject incompetence, ineptitude, and inclination for distortion and misrepresentation. Put simply, the people of Guyana were reminded once again why they decided, why the people of Guyana, decided to put the APNU AFC into opposition in 2020. And similarly, sir, the people of Guyana were reminded of why they decided in 2020 that they wanted to place the responsibility of navigating Guyana, the governmental responsibility of navigating Guyana through this very challenging period in our country's economic history, why they made the conscious decision to task the People's Progressive Party, Civic, with that responsibility by placing us in government. And we take that charge seriously, sir, and we will discharge it faithfully and diligently. With those fewer than usual words,
Yes. Relatively.
I thank you very much, sir. And I thank my colleagues in the House, and I thank the people of Guyana for tuning in and listening to this debate. and analyzing and considering the issues as carefully as they did. And of course, we will be back, sir, next week, at the appropriate time next week. I will be moving the necessary motions to secure the approval of Budget 2023. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance. Honorable members, that concludes the general debate. But before we adjourn, honorable members, we will need to consider and dispose of the report of the Business Subcommittee of the Committee of Supply. And that subcommittee considered the allocation of time for the consideration of the 2023 estimates of expenditure. We will have to go into Committee of Supply for this purpose. The Assembly will now therefore resolve itself into Committee of Supply. Honorable members, I wish to report that the Business Subcommittee of the Committee of Supply met on Thursday, 26th of January, 2023 to consider the allocation of time for the consideration of the 2023 estimates of expenditure in Committee of Supply. The committee passed a resolution on the matter. Copies of the subcommittee's report, resolution, and schedule have all been circulated. Will the Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance move the necessary motion, please?
Certainly, sir. With pleasure, I now move that this committee doth agree with the Business Subcommittee in the said resolution. Thank you very much.
Sir. Honorable members, the question is that the Committee of Supply agree with the Business Subcommittee in its resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The motion is carried. Honorable members, the Committee of Supply has been allocated 4 days for the consideration of the estimates. Consideration will begin on Monday, the 30th of January 2023 at 10 a.m. and will continue thereafter on Tuesday, the 31st of January at 10 a.m., on Wednesday, the 1st of February at 10 a.m., and on Thursday, the 2nd of February at 10 a.m. February the 2nd being the last day for consideration of the budget estimates. This is in accordance with the resolution of the Business Subcommittee of Supply. Let the Assembly resume. Honorable members, this concludes our business for today. Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to seek your approval for the adjournment of the House until Monday, the 30th of January 2023 at 10 a.m.
Before we formally adjourn, I forgot to offer my congratulations to the Honorable Senior Minister of Finance in the Office of the President. Congratulations, sir. Honorable members, we do have some refreshments prepared, and I invite you to join me as we partake, especially applauding the work over the last 5 days. Honorable members, the Assembly is adjourned until Monday at 10 a.m.